Okay, I am back after taking a little bit of a hiatus over the last week. You can see that I have upped my game in terms of, video tricks. I finally decided to break out a video editor, and so you've got some little background video going now. Something that's better than just watching me scroll through the blog posts that I'm presenting to you. So hopefully that some of you will find this to be a bit more consumable than previous iterations. We shall see. Feel free to relay your feedback to me. In any event, I'm Jay Little, and this is my blog post. Today we're going to talk about our dependence, our interdependence upon one another. The title of the post is Today Let's Celebrate Our Dependence. So today is July the 4th, and as it so happens, this is the 250th anniversary of the day that our founding fathers declared their independence from their former parent nation, Great Britain. I personally hope that you all are just as grateful about this historical event as I am, but beyond that, I am not really going to talk about it at all in this post. Rather, what I am going to talk about is the fact that as a species, despite our projected veneer of independence and individualism, we are all in fact mutually dependent upon one another. This does not have to be a bad thing. However, as I have observed the behavior of members of competing political spheres over the last decade, longer frankly, but let's be kind and just say decade, namely those of the conservative persuasion, I have constantly been awestruck by how often and how viciously they reject the notion of dependency. They seemingly believe that they can exist unbothered within the spheres of their lives by simply forcing the rest of us to live in accordance with the tenets they have chosen for themselves. This is very odd to me because as somebody who legitimately feels the need, and I mean this in a very deep-seated way when I say it, the need to preserve a sense of independence, both in the technology and personal aspects of my life. Even I recognize that in order for me to enjoy that kind of benefit, I must afford others the same degree of freedom. A failure to realize that the road of independence must run both ways is a failure to understand what independence actually is and actually represents. And I would submit on the side, not as part of the written blog post, but this is effectively a core failing of the conservative political movement, although frankly at this point it's largely devolved into more of a fascist movement because they don't actively. Conservatism used to be about slowing the rate of progress, not necessarily stopping but slowing, trying to keep us from going where angels might feel to tread so quickly, to give us time to better acclimate. That is probably me giving a lot of credence to the movement over the years. But, I've known sane conservatives and had good relationships with a lot of them over the years, right? And so it's never really been about not changing anything. It's just been about not rushing into changing anything. But that has obviously changed. Under the guise of Trump and MAGA, they want to change everything, and they are. They are absolutely changing everything. So it's not a conservative movement anymore because they are radically changing many aspects of society. A conservative movement is seeking to slow the rate of change or delay the change in order to give us time to better acclimate, theoretically. This is not a conservative movement. It is a fascist movement. It is dividing us into groups of us and them, and we are attacking them. Which brings us to the next paragraph of the post. Take, for instance, this past week's Supreme Court ruling, which allows states to exclude transgender athletes from school sports. There are a lot of people out there who are deeply afraid of transgender individuals and act out of fear, maybe malice, to curtail their rights in every manner that they can devise. They want to regulate what bathrooms they can use, right? Like, who cares what bathroom? Like, seriously, like it just, I cannot understand. Like, this is just the things they want to do to these people and the ways they want to exert control over them is ridiculous, right? Like, they want to regulate what bathrooms they can use. They want to regulate who can and cannot decide to take hormones or have surgery required to transition between genders. It's just that blows my mind. I mean, I'm not transgender, which is a point I make later on, but I know what this movement is, this anti-trans movement. It is simply, a stage of a fascist movement. And a fascist movement depends on this kind of dichotomy. And if you want to snuff it out, you have to kill it now before it's allowed to progress. So we stand up for transgender people because we stand up for ourselves, right? I mean, they want to regulate what sporting leagues these people can play in, which again, like, what difference does it make? Oh my God, the transgender girl is playing on the high school girls volleyball team. Who fucking cares? It's high school sports. It doesn't matter. It's just kids having fun and engaging in competitive sports. Like, when did everything in society become so freaking taken to 11, right? It's ridiculous. Like, it's reminiscent. It's just, there's so many things wrong with approaching life this way, but it's what they're doing. And transgenders are the group de jour to target, right? It basically, when you look at the list of things they're trying to do to this particular group of people, it's almost as if they can believe they can legislate these people out of existence. But why do they constantly act on this impulse? Who is threatened if a transgender girl plays on a high school girls volleyball team? I'm not. Who is threatened if a transgender male uses a men's restroom? I am not. Who is threatened enough to prevent a child suffering from gender dysmorphia from taking hormone treatments in an effort to resolve the torture of having to live a life in which they are constantly confronted by the ever-growing specter of incongruity? I am not. But apparently, a lot of our fellow human beings feel threatened by these things, and they wish to act on those feelings. That is a position I find very quizzical. Of course, when it comes to this sort of honed and vicious bigotry, transgenders only just happen to be the current target and what has been a long line of them. None of the past targets, gays, lesbians, bisexuals, blacks, Asians, Native Americans, etc., has ever actually come off the list. Unlike the endangered species list, the targeted minority group list is a club whose membership appears to be permanent. It is interesting to me that a lot of the people in our society who most strongly identify with the concept of independence are also the ones most quick to try and deny others access to their own inherent right to be independent. The very fact that they can do this and succeed as well as they have at it belies a much darker and deeper truth, though. Perhaps none of us are quite as independent as we'd like to think we are. If it was solely up to me, all of the current conservative efforts to deny any member of any minority group their rights would fail miserably. But again, just like conservatives cannot legislate or wave away the existence of transgenders, we also cannot just legislate or wave away their existence, them, their being the conservatives, their existence. This creates a bit of a problem. Beyond that, the harsh reality is that they are obviously very capable of negatively affecting the existence of people who are different than they. Moreover, this reveals an even deeper truth, which is this: if they can do this, and presumably because we can return the favor, we are now inherently dependent upon one another. That's right. As the old adage goes, no man is an island. Deny it though we may, we are always going to be faced with the fact that we must coexist with one another. Okay? We must. There's no way around it. You can pretend that you are freaking Tom Hanks in Castaway all you want to, but you are not. And frankly, go watch the movie a few dozen times. It was a miserable fucking life. His best friend was a fucking volleyball. Do you really want to be that guy? I don't. Okay? We are always going to be faced with the fact that we must coexist with one another. Don't believe me? You remember the Nazis from nearly 100 years ago? We collectively wiped the floor with their goose-stepping asses. Their entire apparatus was dismantled and turned into dust over a period of just a few years. Yet despite all of that, there are still Nazis running around who profess a deep, undying belief in the so-called tenets of that deeply diseased and broken movement. We simply couldn't kill enough of them. That's ultimately because you cannot kill an idea. Even if it's a terrible idea, you can't murder it out of existence, right? Just as you cannot bury a primal urge so deep that it ceases to exist. If somebody suffers from gender dysmorphia, simply outlawing that condition won't get rid of it, but merely forces those afflicted with it to seek out underground mechanisms for grappling with it. The same goes for conservatives, aka fascists. We must remember this. Each action we collectively take politically echoes throughout the spheres of everyone's existence in the nation, regardless of the groups and labels they respectively identify with and adorn themselves with. That's because right now, while the pendulum is swinging in a decidedly rightward direction, that's left on the camera. No, I want to go right. I don't want to go right. I want to go left. But these people want to go right. I got to do it the opposite. It's mirroring it. I should fix that in OBS. But anyway, it will decide. It will decidedly begin to swing back the other way at some point. Once it does, those on the right who are pushing it will begin to find themselves crushed by that very same pendulum. Once it does, those of us who were being crushed must remember this basic truth. Otherwise, we run the risk of creating a photo-negative version of the hellscape they are now attempting to create. This is the last thing we should be striving for, right? We don't want that. That's bad, right? Remember the unending efforts to purge society of people who have been labeled as undesirable or outside the norm is a core component of a fascist movement. These movements build momentum by finding scapegoats for the ills and woes of society and galvanizing resentment against them. While I myself am not a member of the trans community, I know that in time the perpetrators of this purge will move on to other groups if left to their own devices. This is how it works. It never starts and stops with one group. And even if it did, it's still wrong, right? Even if there was no threat, if it's spreading, it's still wrong, right? And it's obviously wrong. There's really no debate to be had otherwise, right? So, they will move on to other groups. A fascist movement like MAGA and a fascist leader like Donald Trump can't let up on the idea of us versus them for even a single second. That's because their and his entire claim to political power rests on the idea that they are righting the wrongs that others have seen fit to bestow upon society. If there are no longer others to target, their inherent claim to power is lost. So what should we do with the disaffected fascists once their tenuous and semi-clownish reign of terror comes to an end? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? In truth, I don't have the answer to that question. We, and I absolutely include myself in this grouping in a very literal way, once believed that education was the primary antidote to the problem of bigotry. But somewhere along the line, that failed us as a society, didn't it? We spent decades educating people via the public school systems that pushed back, at least in my own personal experience, and I'm speaking as somebody who attended public school in South Carolina, one of the reddest states in the country, right? On a lot of the hatred and division that the human race has indulged itself in over the course of its history, yet a large portion of the people educated in this fashion have now consciously decided to reject those tenets and instead embrace rank fear and irrational hatred as legitimate reasons for continuing to purge society of those who threaten nobody. I will take this line of thought even further by making the claim that nobody in our society is actually independent at all. We simply exist within carefully curated bubbles that allow us to believe in the illusion of independence. But if, for example, in this very hot and humid day, somebody driving by my house randomly decided to take it upon themselves and cut a line on my outdoor air conditioning unit, my ability to operate as an independent entity would come to an end, at least in the short term. That's because without air conditioning, I won't be able to sit here in my home office on what is decidedly a very hot, very humid day. The weather outside is miserable, which is why I'm in here and not out there. Right? I mean, the humidity will choke a freaking horse, man. It's crazy, right? But yeah, if without that air conditioning, I won't be able to sit here and write and edit this blog post. Without the air conditioning, I wouldn't be able to film the video version of it, which I am filming now. My illusion of independence would thus be summarily shattered by an event that exploits my dependence. Dependence upon what? Well, as a non-religious person, I wish I could find a better term for it, and perhaps there is one. But as it stands right now, the best term I have for it is this: grace. We all depend upon the grace afforded to us by everybody else in society. I depend on the grace of my neighbors not to burn my house down with fireworks throughout the weekend. My neighbors depend on my grace to keep from creating auditory and wow, that word's tough to say, and visual spectacles that invade their ability to curate a tranquil existence for themselves. To put it on a more practical level, I depend on trash pickup to keep my house from overflowing with trash. I depend on the water and sewer system provided by the city I live in to keep fresh water flowing keep fresh water flowing into and the wastewater flowing out of my home. The city depends on me to pay my fair share of taxes so that myself and all the other citizens can continue to enjoy these benefits. This sense of dependence extends far beyond the mere city and state I live in, however. It goes even beyond the nation. In the age of nuclear warheads and ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, it is decidedly a global one. Okay? A theoretical example that demonstrates this could be something along the lines of Russia decides to launch ICBMs equipped with nuclear warheads today, and as a result, everyone on the planet is going to have a really bad day. See? They have the power to make all of our lives in existence miserable. Yes, as a country, we are independent of Russia, but we are not independent of their ability to wreak global havoc with the simple push of a button. And so it goes with the rest of us in our smaller and smaller spheres of existence from there, right? One way or another, we are all going to have to figure out how to resolve the cognitive dissonance created by the conflict between our individual sense of independence and the actual reality of our interdependence. Until we figure out the mechanics of that, I think that we would all be best advised to accept that the things that make society tenable and great exist in a very tenuous state, doubly so right now. Mark my words, continuing to attempt to deny others the right to exercise their own inherent right to be independent isn't going to get us there. We must do better than this, because as of right now, we are really, and in fact, let me switch over to center cam mode for this. We are really fucking this thing up, okay? If we don't figure it out, then this vicious cycle will continue as it has for centuries now, okay? It will. Perhaps in terms of the human race, that is our lot in life. However, even if that is the case, I would prefer to spend my time striving for something better than what is basically a revolving door of misery, in which the amount of misery you experience is proportional to what side of the door you currently happen to be on. Having been said, I hope everybody out there has a great day and manages to find some joy in the occasion, American or not. Interdependent though we may be, we all need room to breathe, and I sincerely hope that we will continue to try and find ways to afford people the grace they need to make their way through this confusing and often difficult life, because down that road on the distant horizon lies joy. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I'll see you on the flip side. Peace out.